What's the news today? I'll pull it up while you tell us, but what's the latest coming out of Georgia?
All right. So you know how the other day or last week we had the big news about the disqualification order. The judge gave permission, for it to be appealed. We call that an interlocutory appeal. It's a pre-trial appeal, because let's face it, when it's something that's really important, you don't want to wait until somebody gets convicted and you have to appeal each thing together all at the same time. When it's really, really important, some things get to be appealed prior to a verdict in the case. And so the disqualification order under Georgia, that you have to have two things have to happen. The trial judge has to agree that you can appeal it, and then the Court of Appeals has to agree to take it. Okay. Now, there are some things that can be appealed pre-trial as a matter of right, but most things are discretionary, this being one of them. So what's happened is another co-defendant, a guy named Harrison Floyd. If you remember, Harrison Floyd was the poor guy who got stuck in jail for 2 or 3 weeks in the Fulton County hell pit, where people die by getting infested by bed bugs. Literally, this happens in the Fulton County jail. He didn't get a bond. He got kept there for a while.
We need to highlight that, because we talked about it at the time. There were not memes, but accusations of potential racism, since he was the only, as far as I know, the only black accused, and was the only one denied bond. There was some sort of steelman explanation as to why he did not get bond. But do you remember what that was?
Yeah, Fani Willis basically said, well, he didn't have a lawyer, and so nobody was able to come and talk. They could have arranged for him to have a bond, even though he didn't have a lawyer. So that was a BS explanation, in my opinion, by her. Finally, he got a lawyer, and Chris Kacharoff, I tell you, is doing a great job. He's an out-of-state lawyer, but he represents Harrison Floyd. He was admitted, I don't know how you say in Canada, but it's pro hac vice.
Pro hac vice, yeah.
Vice, whatever. With a Southern accent, it's pro hac vice, or so, anyway, he's admitted. He's got a local lawyer helping him out, but Chris is on vacation in South America. I won't say exactly where he is, but I did text him to confirm that the judge granted his motion to do a pretrial appeal, a discretionary pretrial appeal on a really unique issue. And the issue that was appealed, so they claimed that Willis did not have the authority to pursue a criminal case because she did not get a referral for such from the Georgia Board of Elections. And the judge held a hearing on this, denied the motion, but is going to allow the pretrial appeal. But once again, we still have to have the other piece of it. The Court of Appeals has to chime in and agree to it. But this is another really, really important issue. I think equally important as some of the other issues in the case. The judge seems to be erring on the side of allowing these litigants to take these issues up on appeal. And lots of things. This means a lot of things. It means that obviously there's going to be delays and there's practical consideration. But if there's one thing I can't stand is a judge who thinks that they're always right, that they can't conceive that they might have gotten something wrong. Some judges will deny these discretionary pretrial appeals just because they're too prideful. They don't want to admit they could have gotten something wrong. And if they allow the appeal to be done before the trial, it can save a whole bunch of problems down the road, especially if the judge did get it wrong and we have to do a whole trial. Can you imagine doing this case over and over again because the judge was too prideful to allow these issues to be decided pre-trial?
Well, I mean, if Nathan Wade was still in the file and still getting paid, I don't think he would mind. But back it up just a bit. Harrison Floyd was the only one of the defendants jailed. Do you remember for how long? I was trying to find the date.
I want to say 2 weeks, give or take a day or two. But this is a jail where people die in there on a regular basis.
It's mind-boggling. So this is the jail where there was the incident, I think Barnes talked about it, of the inmate who rat-infested, cockroach-infested, died, and it made the headlines. And so, and also just to back up one thing here, you say appeal of right versus appeal with permission. I mean, I was trying to draw the analogies under Quebec law. There are certain issues that arise where you literally, it's stop everything, you go right up to the Court of Appeal. Because it's an appeal of right, you don't need permission, and it's evidentiary issues typically. In this case, to appeal the non-disqualification, because it's technically not something that is determinative on its face, it required the certificate from Scott, which he issued, and then it requires the Court of Appeal, a panel, to say, yes, we're going to hear it, or no, we're not going to hear it. And Scott, thanks for the certificate, but it goes back down to you.
Almost. You get a 95 out of 100 if that's a law school exam. It's assigned to a panel of 3 judges, and it takes just one of those judges to agree to hear it. That's why I think for, it's more likely that that these issues will be allowed to be appealed pre-trial.
Okay, so that's interesting. So the certificate's been issued. It goes up. It takes one of the panel of 3 to say, yes, we're going to hear it.
Yep.
Then they hear it. Majority decision, obviously.
Yeah, that's right. It'll be, if it's just like anything else on appeal. Normally, if you get a panel of 3 judges and 2 out of the 3 vote in a certain way, then that's going to be the order of the Court of Appeals. But then you get a petition for rehearing. You can ask for the, in Canada, I'm sure you say en banc, but down here we say in bank, sort of where all the judges, weigh in. And then, of course, you can go to the Georgia Supreme Court after that. So it's just the first step in the process.
How long are we expected to wait until we find out if the Court of Appeals is going to hear it?
Well, so we've got the clock is ticking. It's like 45 days from the issuance of the trial judge's certificate. And so now we're, I don't know, a week or 10 days into the other one. Birdies tell me that they expect a decision from the Court of Appeals in, I don't know, maybe this week or next week. They don't think it's going to take 45 days for the Court of Appeals to make a decision on hearing the disqualification. But look, remember, Fani's taken up something as well. She had, before the disqualification, she had Trump and some others had several of their counts tossed by the judge. And when a judge tosses the a certain counts in the indictment, the prosecutor gets to appeal that as a matter of right, and they don't have to get permission. So I think Fani's going to be appealing where Trump and some of the other defendants had, I think, 5 counts cut out of the indictment already. So there's a lot going up on appeal here.
Yeah, those are the 6 charges as relates to the phone call, because they didn't allege with specificity what provisions of the respective oaths were violated, but they left in the underlying acts at issue, because apparently the acts are not the indictment, so you can leave those in because they might be useful for other charges.
Something like that. Yep, you got it.
Very cool. Okay, so that's an appeal as of right, and because if she doesn't, she either moves on with the file without those 6 charges, or the alternatives are she can they do a superseding indictment now, or do they resubmit everything for?
Yeah, she can. But guess what? If she does a superseding indictment, everything starts over. You got to have arraignment. You got to have all this. And so she's screwed, because from her perspective, if she doesn't want to do a superseding indictment, she probably doesn't want to go forward without those charges, and she doesn't want to spend the time to appeal. I feel like she's going to. I feel like she might consider a superseding indictment, but my gut tells me she's just going to barrel ahead with what she's got minus those counts, because she's just that way.
She's still got how many charges were in there? There were like 40 some odd, or were there?
I don't know.
She's still got a lot left, so she's still got some more spaghetti to throw at the wall.
Plenty.
Phil, what was it? So I'm going to bring this up because I haven't looked at this motion yet, because you sent it right before we got started. It's not a motion. This is a post-hearing brief. Okay, so what are we looking at here? What does this pertain to?
You know what? I sent you, I apologize. I sent you the wrong thing. What I thought, this is good to talk about. What I thought I sent you was the petition for the certificate of immediate review from Harrison Floyd. Okay, so what this is, all right, so there's a hearing. What's today? Wednesday. There's a hearing tomorrow. Donald Trump and some of the other defendants have filed motions to dismiss the indictment or parts of it, and to in some of the defendants have asked that certain language be stricken from the indictment. Trump, one of the things that he's challenging, this is a First Amendment challenge, because Trump is saying, look, he's got a First Amendment, and by the way, he's right. He's got a constitutional First Amendment right to speak about a particular political speech. That's the most protected of all kinds of free speech, right? It's almost more protected than anything else. But when you're talking about your beliefs about the political system, it takes on an extra sort of guarantee of freeness, if you will. And so to be prosecuted for making a statement, even if it's not true, about something political in nature is I think First Amendment protected speech. And so he's raising that issue, and constitutional claims like this is a constitutional defense. I believe, now there are some lawyers that disagree with me on this. I've had conversations today about it with some involved in the case. Even there's not really an agreement, but I believe that this is in the category of cases where you don't have to, if Trump loses this motion, he gets to appeal this as a matter of right because it's a constitutional defense. I don't think it requires a certificate of immediate review, but hey, the judge is handing those things out like Halloween candy anyway. So regardless, this is going to be something that either the defense or the prosecutor will take up the judge's ruling on Trump's motion to dismiss on First Amendment grounds.
All right. And that hearing is tomorrow.
That's tomorrow. That's my understanding.
It's,
Yes.
do we know if it's live broadcast?
Yeah, it will be. He's got, McAfee's got his own YouTube channel and I subscribe to it. I'm sure you do too. It's going to be live stream.
I'm going right now.
He's got one for sure. I subscribe to it. He's got his own YouTube channel, Judge Scott McAfee.
McAfee. And what time is this going to be on?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know, but I'm sure someone in our chat already knows and they can tell us.
Well, I've just subscribed and I'm turning on all notifications. Well, you're going to get notifications every time he takes a guilty plea on another case or has an adoption or whatever, because he basically has his courtroom open to the public, which I think is fantastic, by the way. He has it open to the public through YouTube. Absolutely. That's amazing. Okay, well, I'll see what time that streams at and probably get on it myself. So those are the latest. I still can't get over the fact that they did not, Harrison Floyd was held in jail for an extended period of time on these charges where they literally let out, violent assaulters on police officers with zero cash bond. It makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah.
That's the latest coming out of Georgia.
Yep. So at least as it pertains to this, we've got she's got this big Fani has this giant RICO case going against Atlanta rapper Young Thug. Have you heard about that?
Yep.
Yep. So Young Thug is still going. They had to take a day off because somebody was sick, and the jail said it was going to take them at least 24 hours to evaluate their health. I'm telling you, you cannot understate how terrible of a shithole that Fulton County jail is. I'll tell you, I recently am involved in a case where they kept somebody in jail like 3 or 4 weeks after a judge ordered their release simply because nobody would process the paperwork. And that's a case I'm personally involved with. Ashley Merchant, who is the hero of all this, the Erin Brockovich, she and her husband, John, have successfully sued the Fulton County jail because of conditions down there. I can't tell you how bad it is. It's just awful, in my opinion.
Wow. All right. Well, I'm asking the chat to see if we know what time it is tomorrow, because I think we'll be covering.
I think it's in the morning, but don't hold me.
And should it go on the entire day, or is it going to be a shortish motion, like an hour and a half?
Well, there's a number of defendants who need to be heard from, so I don't know that it'll be all day, but it won't be an hour and a half situation. I think it's going to require a fair amount of argument.
Okay, what else? So for the time being, nothing more out of Georgia. The Young Thug, I haven't been following it. Have you been following that?
Yeah, and in fact, I had a guest on my channel the other day who's very familiar with it, Rachel Kaufman, and we had a nice discussion about it. One of the state's witnesses he testified how high, he was like, "Judge, I'm really high right now. I'm about to fall asleep." This was like literally under oath. And instead of like holding him in contempt or doing something else, the judge just gave him some water and moved on. Like, hey, it's just no big deal. We're going to let witnesses who tell us they're high as a kite, when people's lives are on the line, these defendants. I'm not saying they're guilty or innocent. I don't know, but I know that they're all charged with giant RICO indictment, and the state's own witnesses come to court and they're high and they say that they're about to fall asleep and can you give me some water, and the judge just lets them go on with it. How can you have any faith in the results of whatever happens in that case, whether they're convicted, whether they're acquitted, or something in the middle, when this kind of crap is allowed to go on with no oversight whatsoever? It turns us into a laughing stock here.